Bitcoin? Is it a store of value?
Well, I mean, we're using old definitions. Is this working?
Is there an on button?
Off again. Testing. There we go. I mean, again, we're using old definitions to describe new things. And so you're trying to, again, definitionally, maybe not. Are some people buying Bitcoin because they perceive it as a store of value? I think the answer is certainly yes. I believe that some people believe that it is a store of value. Maybe it doesn't meet the definition perfectly, but some people do. They view it as a hedge, a hard asset, in the same way that some people might buy gold or buy real estate. And I think the definition is really in the eye of the beholder more than anything else. And it might be rightly or wrongly.
Well, let's take the gold comparison, right? Because it has properties that are similar in terms of supply. Gold is like 190,000, ounces or whatever, or tons, above ground, and they have 50,000 below. Bitcoin is 18 or 17 million mined, and another 3 or 4 million to go. So, in that sense, there are similarities, and you can call it mining. I mean, really, it's lending computational power to secure the network. I mean, that is what it is. It's not really mining. I mean, but there's other than that, there's really no similarity. I mean, if you stop mining Bitcoin tomorrow, it ceases to exist. If you stop mining gold tomorrow, it becomes more valuable. There is absolutely no threat whatsoever to gold. Gold is not going away. It is an actual asset. It is something that's useful in medicine. It destroys tumors. It blocks the UV rays from the sun the astronauts use in their visor. It's the best conductor of electricity. I mean, I'm just saying it has properties that are useful, especially if you look out in our economy going forward in the space age. I mean, it doesn't tarnish. What are we going to need? We're going to need an asset that conducts electricity efficiently. It doesn't tarnish. I mean, those are things that you can use in a space. I'm just saying in our futuristic economy, that's something that's always going to have value. Bitcoin may or may not have value going forward. And when you talk about a store of value, the number one most important thing for a store of value is the longevity. I mean, it's a store of value, right? So it doesn't have anything to do with Bitcoin. It's not a store of value. And I think the people like the Winklevoss that get up there and try to get grandmas to put their savings into it, I mean, they're total charlatans. And honestly, I don't even know if they're breaking a crime by doing it, because the definition of store of value is so far from what Bitcoin actually is that by going up and trying to get somebody to buy something that you already own a lot of that will increase the price on a fraudulent basis seems like a crime to me. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not going to say it, but I'll tell you this: if I had lost money and it was because of them telling me and I didn't know any better, I would think I might have a pretty decent lawsuit on my hands.
Well, they could sue you for if it went up for dissuading them from doing it on that
same
basis.
They could not. I posted about 20 or 30 facts and I explained them. I mean, I'm not a religious person when it comes to this. I don't really care. I mean, I support crypto. I would love to see it work. It's just that it won't work.
Let's think about that for a second. What are the things about crypto that you like?
No, I like what it was originally created for: certainty in money, the transparency. I mean, the lack of, or the defined inflation. I mean, I love it as what it was intended to be. The problem is that the charlatans have taken it over and they've warped it because they want to make more money. And he was talking about, it's taken all the innovation out of the crypto space.
You're talking about Jeremy?
Yeah, Jeremy. There's no innovation in the crypto space because these guys
I would disagree. And obviously there are a lot of bad actors. Just like there were a lot of bad actors in 1997, 1998 especially, and incredibly so by 1999. Anytime you see this type of money being made this quickly with this big an asymmetry of information amongst the various market participants, obviously it invites all the bad actors out. And we've seen this every time a new industry emerges. This is not a new thing. And hopefully, people get smart over time. And the best advice I give people, I don't encourage anyone to invest in any of this stuff. I encourage people to invest in themselves, to invest in knowledge so that they make their own informed decisions for themselves, not doing something because someone else has recommended to do so. And I'm also a big fan of gold.
By the way, let's talk about some of the good things that are happening in crypto in Puerto Rico. Because one of the things that I've noticed is you've made an unbelievable personal sacrifice and investment into literally bringing life back to that island and economically. Talk about some of that stuff, because that's the good side of what crypto can actually do to change an overall economic situation.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much of it is really crypto-centric. Obviously that's the tools that I happen to have in my toolbox.
Well,
and when
also a
you're
bunch of
a
other
hammer,
people.
everything looks a little bit like a nail. So I do make use of the technology, but the real focus there is Puerto Rico's recovered mostly from the hurricane, and there'll be other hurricanes in the future. And if they plan accordingly, they'll recover from that. The big issue, the real issue that exists, the one that long term is hard to recover from, is the brain drain. You have 6 million Puerto Ricans that have left Puerto Rico as part of the diaspora, many of whom are here in New York, Florida, and other places, and they've left because the opportunities just weren't there. And when you lose the intellectual capital, you lose the human capital, you lose the spiritual capital, you lose the financial capital, when the intellects all start disappearing and moving away because they've got the means to do so and to pursue a better future for themselves, that has a real long-term negative impact. And then at the student level as well, when these college kids are graduating, there's no good jobs for them, so they all have to leave as well. I mean, Google, Facebook, NASA sit there and recruit constantly because you have the number 15 engineering school in the country, there and without any jobs. It's one of the best possible places to recruit from because there's no other opportunities essentially there. And so when you're losing, the elders and you're losing the future leaders, consistently long term, that is probably the biggest problem that exists there. And one of the things that we are able to do as an industry is there are no venture-backed startups, in Puerto Rico. There are no venture funds in Puerto Rico. We're bringing venture capital, we're bringing angel investors, we're bringing mentors, we're bringing startups, we're creating jobs, and hopefully creating the next generation of Puerto Rican founders who then can inspire other Puerto Rican students that is now a possibility that can exist in their future. Historically, to dream that dream, the tools were not there to make that dream a reality. We're bringing those basic tools there to help Puerto Ricans start, companies, because that's what we do. Obviously, we're helping out in all the other little ways we can, from, agriculture to energy to just general philanthropic aid, whether it be putting roofs on houses, solar panels in places where they don't have power, helping with education. We're doing what we can. We live our lives in service.
It's funny. I talked to Jeremy. You had a chance to talk to him last night also. And the one question that I see over and over coming, and the one that I think you can answer best, is when I first got involved in Bitcoin, which was 8 years ago, what it was then and why I was involved with it then, I think has gradually changed to what it is today. And what crypto will be in the future is we have to ask ourselves, why are we here? And that's a question I want to pose to you, is why are we here and what are we doing?
Well, a lot of people, the why they are here is to make money. The economic incentives that exist in this space are what attract most people to it in the beginning. That's what brings them through the door. Once you've spent enough time in this space to understand the potential it has for positive impact in the world, you eventually leave with religion of sorts. Greed brings you through the door, and eventually you become enlightened and you become aware of the fact that this technology has the potential to positively impact the lives of billions of people. And hopefully that's the reason that you're here. Once you've been here for a little while, you've gotten past, call it the game of compounding interest, or the game of self-interest, and figuring out how to enrich yourself, to figuring out that this is a technology that's about open source things that we build with open minds and hopefully open hearts, and with a desire to do something that benefits the many. I mean, that's as you understand the power of decentralization, the power of these distributed systems, the power of bringing transparency and auditability to things, and to bring immutability, you can start to solve a lot of the biggest problems that exist in the world theoretically. Now it's time for those theoretical things to start to really be impacting lives. But the blockchain, for the last 10 years, this technology has still been in its prototyping phase with limited actual use cases.
Right.
The jury is still out. I don't disagree with anything you've been saying. The jury is still out, but we have to actually, it's nice to have that happy talk, but the internet was the same way through the 1970s, the 1980s, into the mid-90s. It wasn't until 1995 when the consumer internet started to basically become possible, because the bridges...
when bandwidth got faster,
Well,
too.
you needed the basic infrastructure. You needed the bridges, the roads, the tunnels. Until you had an internet browser and an email client, and content to consume or products to buy, the internet wasn't useful to very many people in the same way that this, other than really, Bitcoin and potentially disrupting venture financing with things like ICOs. Those have really been the only two real use cases to date. We're now starting to see some payment use cases in the developing world. Now 5% of the population of the Philippines is using blockchain to do money remittance. 5%.
Where'd you get that from?
I spent a lot of time in the Philippines.
That's amazing.
Coins.ph has 5% market share now. Well, you have the Philippines is an interesting market. It's roughly 100 million people, 80% of whom do not have bank accounts. So it's one of the most unbanked countries. It's as bad as most of Africa. But you have more cell phones than you have people. It was Friendster's largest market, so they were the first major market to understand social networking. It's English speaking, and you now have a president and central bank that is supportive of this technology continuing to be implemented. Because and then you also have the incumbent banking world that is supporting it. You have new special economic zones. You have like all of the stars have aligned in the Philippines for that 5% to potentially become 25%. And it's the largest remittance market in the world per capita because you have tons of Filipinos working, all over the world.
Shout out to all my Filipino friends.
Sending money back home.
There's one right here going crazy.
Yeah, we've got some Filipinos in the audience. We love the Philippines.
I mean, I think you keep comparing it to the tech boom, and I just think there's such dramatic differences. I mean, what I'm seeing now is, the ICOs that people have taken to me to examine are almost complete fraud. I've seen a few that are legitimate, and they can't raise any money because they want to do it the right way, and the right way is hard. Because when you comply with the regulations, it's expensive, it's onerous, it takes time. The ICOs, you float your ICO, you make $100 million, the guy gets a couple chicks, he's on the boat, he's got a plane, and why is he going to work at all anymore, right? And that's what's happened with most of these guys. That's why in 10 years, you haven't really seen anything. I mean, name one major business that's really running on the blockchain, profitable business. I mean, I know IBM's doing a little bit with shipping and whatever, but it's not an actual profitable business. They're using it internally.
Well, because the tech hasn't been there. We've been in where the internet was in the 1970s.
It's been there for 10 years. I mean, I saw it. I saw blockchain.
It wasn't even live 10 years ago today. The first blockchain wasn't even live 10 years ago today.
I'm just saying, you had an open source Bitcoin. You had open source Bitcoin like 10 years ago.
It was
roughly 10 years ago.
But the infrastructure was clumsy at best.
Right, but I'm just saying you had open source blockchain 10 years ago. Everybody saw it. 10 years is a long time.
Everybody didn't see it. Very few people saw it. Most people only became aware of it, really in 2013. And at that point, it was only known in the context of Bitcoin. It had major reputational issues because you had a lot of journalists only focusing on the sensational aspects of the technology, which was it's used for drugs. The same things they said about the internet in 1995 and 1996. If you read Newsweek, or you look at any of the media back then, they said the internet was a fraud. The internet was only there for criminals.
Look, I'm not saying it's a fraud. I'm just saying that the efficiencies that Bitcoin had, the use case for Bitcoin is because it runs outside of government control. You can send a wire instantaneously if we don't have the KYC, if we don't have the bullshit banking regulations, if they're not charging all the fees. If it weren't for like the regulations and the fees and the banks in between, you could actually send that wire faster, cheaper. So it's not like a better payment system. It's just that they're subverting the regulations, and with that comes dramatic risk, right? What if we have a terrorist attack? I mean, you talk about the existential threats to Bitcoin. We have a terrorist attack that they link back to Bitcoin funding or whatever it is. I mean, you can kiss it goodbye in terms of legal.
And they used a mobile phone. We should get rid of those too.
You have quantum computers that could like wipe it out. I'm just saying, there's massive risk. You should be realistic about what you have and the risk, especially when you're trying to get other people to invest in it.
All right,
that's all I'm saying.
Let me ask you a hard question.
Shoot.
Why are you here? Why are you looking? Where do you see crypto a year from now? You, Adam Bilzerian, when you sleep at night, where?
I mean, I think until people are willing to reflect on what's going on here and the fact that they're letting greed completely run amok here and they're not looking at what crypto actually is and the reason it was created and the best case for it, I mean, I think as long as you try to make it super commercial, it's going nowhere. Because it's not, like for example, they talk on right over here, Fast Money, they say, as soon as we get regulation in Bitcoin, it's going to be amazing.
Hey, can we get Kramer over here?
We get regulation and it'll be great, that'll be good for blockchain. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? Regulation will be good for Bitcoin? No, it will not be good, because then all you're going to do is put all those onerous things that the banks have to comply with on Bitcoin. It'll be even less efficient. It'll be more expensive. It'll take more time. So, I mean, I'm just saying.
I disagree with almost all of that.
Shoot, go for it.
Because most of what you see, if you're following the front lines of the industry and what's being financed today by the VCs, the top category right now is reg tech, regulatory technology. Using this technology, you can actually build in the compliance directly into the tech itself, and you can lay off almost the entire compliance department.
Now we're talking about two different things.
But
you're not addressing the point I was making. I'm talking about Bitcoin specifically here. If they regulate Bitcoin, so every time you go on an exchange, and the exchange has to know who it is, they do the KYC, they're going to do all this stuff. I'm saying
pretty much do that now.
If you regulate Bitcoin,
That's
do you think that's good? Do you think that's good for Bitcoin?
Well,
yes or no?
I don't think you can regulate Bitcoin. I think you can regulate businesses that operate in the space. You can regulate the exchanges. You can regulate the wallets. You can try and regulate the customers or the end users.
Of course,
but you can't regulate Bitcoin itself.
Of course, you can regulate Bitcoin. You can say you cannot use Bitcoin.
That's
If you use Bitcoin, you do this.
You can regulate the end user.
Right. You can regulate the use of Bitcoin.
Who is Bitcoin?
Well, we're regulating the banks, right? The banks are then relying on doing it. I mean, there's an intermediate.
You've got many countries, and those regulations are country by country. And so what you're seeing is, take the United States, for example. The U.S. now represents about 4% of the crypto market and falling, because the best and the brightest are leaving to move to Asia or move to Europe.
That is true.
You're seeing regulatory arbitrage where individuals and founders are basically jurisdiction shopping, and you've got a bunch of countries that are saying, we want this here. The Philippines has created entire special economic zones to attract people. You've got most of the top markets, but the U.S. is seeing a huge flight of talent because of regulatory uncertainty.
Yeah, you're pounding home on Bitcoin.
What's that?
Your focus is on just Bitcoin.
That's what I'm saying.
Now,
I'm talking.
Take your
well, look,
view
most of the
a little
ICOs
outside.
are complete trash. I mean, we all know that, right?
I agree with that.
Everybody will admit that.
Wait, whoa. You guys agree? They agree. Give them a clap. Give them a clap. If you're out there at home, give them a clap. They agree.
I think that they're mostly people with good intentions that just are not qualified or experienced enough to deliver on the promises they're making, and most of it's out of naivety. But the real naivety is the tools that are actually funding these. I mean, I'm a VC. I've invested in more startups in this space than perhaps anyone. The problem is people are not doing sufficient due diligence. They're funding, kids with a white paper that have never shipped a product before.
When you say most people have good intentions, when you float a coin that has no tie back to the actual company, is never going to produce dividends, isn't like a utility token, and it's just a coin that has it's complete and pure air. How could you say that is a good intention? How can you say a guy who launches that coin?
Well, not everyone has good intentions.
That's what I'm saying. He said most of the people. The point is most of the people don't. I don't think
I've spent time with most of them are not qualified to execute on the vision that they're presenting. But I'm not meeting a bunch of criminals. These are young entrepreneurs that believe in making the world a better place in most instances.
Bone to pick with that, because technically a lot of them are criminals, because they've broken a lot of SEC regulations by floating these coins. And they can't make it good, because as I talked to a lawyer at this last conference, he said that basically they have to go now, and they have to make everybody whole who's ever bought their coin if they want to come and comply with the SEC regulations. So they haven't been prosecuted yet, they haven't been fined yet, but you are dealing with a bunch of people outside of laws. And in fact, a lot of people, when they're using Bitcoin, the way that they're using Bitcoin, they're also criminals. They're not reporting the taxes properly, because it's like impossible to do it. I mean, transacting in a commodity, which is what the IRS terms Bitcoin, okay? That's what it deems it, whether right or wrong.
The IRS calls it property.
Right.
Commodity.
Well, they're taxing it as a commodity. So
they're taxing it as property.
It's the same thing as if you sold gold.
No, he's right. Property.
It's being taxed as property.
What's the difference? Every time you have a taxable
it's like treating it as real estate, not a commodity.
It doesn't matter. Every time you sell it or buy it, it's a taxable event for you. Okay, so I'm just saying.
It was all under the law, and the IRS made changes at the beginning of this year. But up until the end of last year, because the IRS was treating this property, you were allowed to use like-kind transactions similar to
that is definitely not true. That is definitely not true. I just spoke to a lawyer about that.
The Big Four auditors,
100%
the Big
not
Four
true.
auditors, and
okay,
every law
hold on,
firm was
wait.
writing
Can I pull up the IRS's actual statement and read it?
Yes, please.
We're going to break for a moment while Adam does research on Google.
I'm just going to read off the IRS.
And now a word from one of our sponsors.
And January 1st.
Stefan, could you come up here and give a word from one of our sponsors? Where is Stefan? Oh, there he is.
They further defined it January 1st. The rules changed.
We really aren't going to commercial break. This is just live all the day long.
But they were up until.
I mean, it's an important point.
Keep looking.
I pull up their guidance.
All right, so while he's on Google, and I can verify he's looking up on Google. Hey, Stefan, come over here a second. He's recently been nominated GQ's Germany Man of the Year in the crypto space. I give you Stefan Tittle. Stefan, you know Brock Pierce, right? So, Stefan, what in God's green earth got you involved in crypto?
Just for the best intentions, of course. Now, I believe in this technology because this technology will change a lot of industries and a lot of processes to the better. It's very simple. And processes and industries and business models which can be...
Talk about some of the stuff you guys are doing.
More efficient, eventually will become. Yeah? And I like a lot of the comments from the right because I agree that
When you say the right, you're not talking Republican right, you're just talking Adam.
No. I agree that most of the utility tokens and most of the ICOs are just vaporware. But I think now the next wave is coming, and we might be an example for this. A team with an existing product, with a security token, where the value of the token is tied back to the company and what we are really doing. And I think the market is looking for solutions like this, and I'm sure, especially next year, most of those very serious STOs will emerge and help also the whole industry.
He is Stefan. He's from Germany. He's the CEO of Rise. They recently did a video that got 80 million views. He's correct. He is 100% correct. There are good projects. We'll talk to him a little bit later. Give him back the mic. Give Stefan a great big hand.
Well, and I'll add one point to this because I like throwing around this number. The security token is where this next wave is going to be next year. You're now seeing the first exchanges launching.
Right now, there's a man in the back row, Darren Marble, crying. He's so happy.
Well,
I got the glasses on.
I did put together the first security token with PCAP, which was about a year and a half ago.
You did the first one like that, didn't you?
Yeah, and so I was telling entrepreneurs prior to that look at security tokens. People should have rights to ownership, dividends, royalties. There's a reason why venture capitalists and investors have always liked those traits for a very long time. It's not that it was all wrong. I think there's some interesting aspects to utility tokens. I'm a fan of utility tokens, but in general, most projects shouldn't be utility tokens. And the way to determine whether your project should be a utility token or a security token is ask yourself, what is best for your community? What is best for your users, not what's best for you? A lot of people like utility tokens because they're like, I can raise a bunch of money and give up no equity. It's non-dilutive. If that's your reason for creating a utility token, that is the wrong reason. If that is what will make your project best, if that's what's best for your end users and for protocols, that is often the case. But generally speaking, security tokens are the way to go. It's new, and it's going to be massive. I mean, since we are where we are, it's worth noting that I believe the securitization of the world's assets are going to give birth to the first quadrillion-dollar market. And I think I can say quadrillion with a straight face. A billion is 1,000 million.
I'm going to need
a trillion is
clarification.
1,000 billion. A quadrillion is 1,000 trillion. Because the securitization of the world's currencies, a securitization of the world's debt markets, a securitization of the world's equity markets. Our equities are all going to trade using this stuff. And as we tokenize all the world's real estate, you are looking at a market that large. And the economic opportunities that it creates and the efficiency that it's going to bring across all markets are going to be huge. And you're going to see that begin in a very big way next year.
All right, I have a question. How many hotels do I need on Boardwalk and Park Place to get to a quadrillion?
Probably all of them, and you're still going to fall short.
I think I need some more. I need some more. All right, so before we go to our head of research and development here and get that information from Google, I need a bottle of water because I'm parched. You guys need anything? What?
Right here, buddy.
Really?
Enjoying my NASDAQ coffee.
All right. I tried. He blocked it. I've never seen somebody block a goal. So the shoes are killer, by the way. Those are nice. I will say, if it wasn't for Stefan, you'd be GQ's best dressed man of the year. All right, so you've been hounding Google. Somebody just sent you a message. Okay. Hey, stop sending him messages, okay? He's live right now. So go ahead. What did you find out?
Sorry. So anyway, it's just a guidance. The IRS is aware that virtual currency may be used to pay for goods and services or held for investment. Virtual currency is a digital representation of value that functions as a medium of exchange, a unit of account, and a store of value. These guys are idiots too. In some environments, it operates like real currency, the coin, paper, money of the United States or any other country that is designated as legal tender, circulates the customary used and accepted as medium exchange of the country issuance, but does not have legal tender status in any jurisdiction. Virtual currency that has equivalent
You're literally
value.
putting everyone asleep on the live stream. Wake up, people! Wake up!
Whatever. Okay, fine. I won't go through it. The point here is that, okay, property, gold, whatever. The point is that it's taxable.
Okay, that was his way of saying you're right. So give
Well,
him
no,
credit.
No, it's the same thing.
And by the way, if
No,
you
it's no different.
If
It's
you're
not
in
like
crypto,
okay.
if you're
Maybe I
in
should read this whole thing
crypto,
out.
pay your taxes. Pay the man his money. If you don't, the consequences may be very,
By the way,
very
shout out to
severe.
John Malkovich. That was a reincarnation of John.
No, you don't understand.
I give this advice to everyone. And
Property,
the IRS,
it's the same thing. It's the same taxable event. If I sell my gold, it's a taxable event. I have a basis in the gold, I sell it, it's different. If I sell my crypto, I have a basis in the crypto, I sell it, it's a taxable event.
You know I'm paying for this live stream. We're literally putting people
I'm
to
not
sleep.
It's the
disagreeing
same,
with
no,
you.
but it's an important point. Not only that, by the
Can
way,
we talk back?
the
Can we
stable-
talk about the girls
It's
that want to
taxable.
get rich?
And make
Can we
sure
talk-
you pay
hey,
your taxes,
Jeremy, I'm
just
especially if you're
saying.
a U.S.
Can we
citizen.
get Jeremy back up here and talk about using tanks to shoot something? I mean,
Look,
we're literally talking about IRS regulation. You literally
That's
Googled it.
important. Yeah,
By
but
the
it's
way, we do
important.
have,
He's saying it's not taxed as gold. It's
Hold
the
on.
exact same thing. You have a taxable and you have
I'm
basis.
telling you
taxable,
how
it's
the
same thing.
IRS does
And it's
taxes.
not, I'm just saying the like kind does not hold. That's all I'm saying.
I'm saying if
like
you go,
kind does not hold.
up until December 31st of last year, almost every major law firm and accounting firm would write you a legal opinion that because the IRS took the ruling as its property, you're able to do that. In the new IRS rules this year,
Yeah,
it
but-
specifically excluded it.
Okay,
So in 2018,
but
that
you
was not the
understand
case.
that Bitcoin
But
and
in
Ethereum, for
2018
example, are not like kind. It's like a
we
stock.
change
It's
the
owning
I'm gonna
G and
teach-
Ford.
I'm
It's
gonna
not.
teach- I'm going to teach
We're
you a
literally
trick, though,
talking
that
about
might,
IRS
that's
rules.
might
People
change
are
your
like-
life right now.
Okay, okay.
People are going to the bathroom.
But
Right
hold
now.
on,
They're never
I'm
gonna
going
come back.
to teach you something very valuable. This year, are you familiar with what are called opportunity zones? So there's new legislation that takes effect next month, and if you invest your capital gains into what are called special opportunity zones, typically poor neighborhoods that have low income, if you invest in these neighborhoods, they're all over the United States. The entire island
Actually,
of Puerto
this is
Rico is
interesting.
one.
This is very interesting.
And if that goes into a fund and it's locked up for 10 years, you don't pay any capital gains. So whatever capital gains, this is created by the IRS you have, any crypto capital gains, make sure you invest it into an opportunity zone fund that is going to help people in areas where they have economic needs.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a shameless plug, and I'm going to tell you why. Not because we're up here and we're live streaming to what, like 35,000 people? No, who knows? But no, seriously.
4.
Tell people, get out there, tell people where they can get involved in Puerto Rico. Because let's be honest, people need to get involved. You need people to get involved. The island needs people to get involved. And the people there need people to get involved and care.
Why don't you tell them about the tax savings by moving
Michelangelo.
there? You had like a 90%.
Can I bring up a Puerto Rican entrepreneur that can share this message?
Who?
Michelangelo.
Where is he?
Michelangelo, can you?
Oh, no. We're going to keep the stage of these three.
Well, if you want to hear directly from one of the most talented Puerto Rican entrepreneurs,
Well,
talk
about getting involved.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is it. You know, the first thing you do in life, if you want to get involved in something, the first step is usually showing up.
And you've done that.
It's called, and you did.
Yeah.
And you're like,
I'm going
doing
to
this
do it.
next week. I said,
And by the
hey,
way,
you came to my thing, I'm coming to yours.
And by the way, I got to tell you, Puerto Rico is
What goes around, comes around.
is a beautiful island. Like I posted a picture of the ocean there. It's literally Hawaii on the left side of the country. Is it left or right? Maybe right. Depends on what you're looking at.
The far right.
Yeah, the far right, but not as in Trump right, as in far right, as on the right side of the map.
Well, far south, too. It's the closest to the equator.
right south. But I will say, it is a beautiful island. It is a beautiful island.
Enchanting. It's magical. It's beautiful. It's the most
it's got amazing history.
Most underappreciated part of the United States. It's as beautiful as Hawaii. Go check it out if you haven't.
You've been there, haven't you?
And just by visiting, the Caribbean thrives off of tourism. Just by showing up, you are actually making a difference. By spending a little bit of money. Obviously, if you can show up and go do something that's philanthropically helpful, if you can do more than just showing up and having a good time,
Don't you have an event coming up?
By showing up at all, you're doing good work.
Don't you have something coming up in December?
Yeah, so we've been doing these restart events. We did the first one
Shameless
in March.
plug, by the way, shameless plug, but it's okay.
By the way, if you want to help Puerto Rico, you should tell them about the massive tax break that entrepreneurs and investors get by moving there.
You're literally Mr. IRS. Why don't you just tell them?
Well, if you're a Puerto Rican resident,
you pay like 10% of
you
the
pay
tax.
0%. You don't pay federal income tax anymore. You pay local income tax, which is 4%, and there's 0% capital gains, short and long term.
Now a word from our sponsors. Hi, my name's Chris. What you've just heard is a lot of tax stuff. And in no time are we endorsing any of these comments whatsoever. Seek good counsel whenever thinking about tax situations.
There you go. It's a good
and
idea.
please, don't take the advice of these two guys or me.
Good idea.
Now,
None of what I've said here is intended to be tax or legal
None
advice.
of what I said is intended to be taken officially in any capacity.
so now,
This is all a
Do your
parody.
own research.
so now, back to our conversation, which, by the way, let's give these two guys a hand. They are stirring the pot. They are stirring the...
I mean, the funny thing is, I think people like me and you're on the same side in the sense that we want the betterment of humankind.
They actually do like
through
each other,
crypto
probably.
and through blockchain and all of that. It's just, I just want to eliminate the bullshit from the conversation.
if you want-
because
if you
I think
watch my
it
talks,
detracts from the innovation.
I
is
say
all
the
I'm
same
saying.
things you say all the time. When we're in a bull market, I try to pour cool water on everybody and try to keep rational minds, keep people as rational as they can. And also explain when we're in these bull markets, when people start making money for the first time in their lives, money has a way of sometimes changing people.
Right.
And not always for the better, as we probably all know.
Great.
And, I spend a lot of my time, most of my time, just trying to talk to people and talk some sense, into them. And what you say is important. Yeah, there are a lot of bad actors out there that will take your money, if you let them. And the way that you don't have your money taken from you is by making your own decisions, by making your own informed decisions, not letting FOMO, or whatever greed get the best of you.
Another
If
word from our
greed and
sponsor.
fear of missing out is the thing that's motivating you.
FOMO, fear of missing out.
If that's what's motivating your decisions, you're
mean,
going
the-
to be parted with your money quickly.
The thing is, too, is that, you're hanging around with, like, a small subset of the population. You're probably hanging out with really intelligent people working on this, people who understand it.
You talking to him?
I'm blessed in that
Yeah.
regard. I'm surrounded by
I'm
amazing
sure,
people.
I'm sure
yes.
both of you, and I'm just saying that we have to understand
I
that
just
the
feed the
general
rich and the poor.
population will hear somebody say something, and they're not going to question it. They're not going to do their own research. And I think we just have to acknowledge that that's a reality, and we have to live in that reality. And that's, again, brings back my point when we start talking about store value and all of these things, and these people just hear it, and then they're like, oh, that's it. They're not going to research it, and so we have to be careful with our language. Just like how I see all this is semi-efficient market, right? An efficient market is something that has no waste. An inefficient market is something that has waste, right? There's an intermediary in the language in between that you don't need to use semi. Semi is used, it's like calling Chris semi-smart, right? It doesn't make any sense. You know what I'm saying? And so, but they're using that language because the market isn't efficient, and there's a ton of inside information. They did a study on all the Federal Reserve announcements, and they knew that they're released beforehand. And so they're using that type of language to defraud the average investor to make them think, oh, it's safe, it's pretty efficient. But that little efficiency is people taking massive quantities of money out of the market through inside information. And it's the language that's a problem, and that's all I'm saying.
All right, so here's a question. How can people learn more about your views? Are you going to write a newsletter post for us? We can ship it out to our...
I mean, I really have, honestly, this is almost a negative for me because I come off as being anti-Bitcoin and anti-crypto,
Actually,
which
you know
is
what?
not really true.
You know what? The
But
world
it's
needs that.
It's bad for me from a business sense, and so I'm probably not going to do much. I'm here, you asked me to come speak, so I'm here.
Listen, let me tell you something. You're good for a lot of people. Not everyone needs to hear the Kool-Aid. Sometimes it's good to jump in the cold water and wake up. And shout out to Tony Robbins who jumps in the cold water every
Before
day.
we leave, you get a lot of respect from me because when I did write that up, I know that you're really deep in this and you're making a lot of money from this, and you're influential in this
He
community.
doesn't know how much money I've made on this, just for the record.
But you did share that post, and I appreciate that you gave everybody else the other side of that. I know that being in your position,
do you remember
that
the
must not have
comments?
been easy to do.
Do you remember the comments? People were like, you're an idiot, you're this, it's going to the moon, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, no.
I was literally at the bottom going, this is actually really good. And it's actually funny because the people that were offended by that post are the people that needed it the most.
For sure.
And those are the people that we want to reach out to with common sense. And that's what you're bringing.
Yeah.
You're not bringing the hate and the heat. You're bringing the common sense.
Yeah.
Now, when you see the Winklevi twins, I don't know about how that plays out.
Yeah, but it's offensive to me, when people come, and, Brian Kelly, whatever, he's probably over there right now.
Hey, shout out to Brian Kelly over at CNBC.
But, these guys come and talk about it. They don't understand anything about blockchain. They don't understand anything about Bitcoin. They haven't done any of the research, and they're coming up and telling millions upon millions of people, what to do. And they clearly, because when you hear them talk about it, you're like, okay, that's wrong. That's factually incorrect. So they clearly don't understand what they're talking about, and they're advising all of these people. And so, that annoys me.
I actually love the fact that you just called Brian Kelly an idiot.
I didn't say that technically, but sure, why not? I mean, I actually like the guy, to be honest with you.
All right, so he's Adam Bilzerian. He is a thought leader in the crypto space. Whether you like his thoughts or not, he is on target 93% of the time. I'm Chris Champion. Thanks for being up here.
Thanks, man.
All right, good seeing you, brother.
Nice to meet you, man.
Exchange numbers.